Welcome to a new segment on my channel, Top 5 Football. Let's get right into it with the top 5 NFL trade steals. Number 5. Falcons sent Brett Favre packing to the Packers in exchange for a first-round pick. Brett Favre, or Brett Favre, was drafted by Atlanta in the second round of the 1991 draft despite coach Jerry Glenville's disinterest. Favre's first NFL pass was a pick 6. That season, Favre only attempted 4 passes, which resulted in 2 interceptions and 0 completions. He was also sacked once. Bafflingly, the Green Bay Packers still expressed interest in Favre, and prior to the 1992 season, dealt a first-round pick to land him. Atlanta would use this first-round pick to get running back Tony Smith, who played for Atlanta and Carolina in his brief, unimpressive 4-year career. He finished with less than 400 career rushing yards and a mediocre 3.8 yards a carry and only 2 touchdowns. What a Brett Favre. 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 resulting in a win, 11 Pro Bowls, 3 NFL MVPs, NFL Hall of Famer, 6,300 completions, 508 touchdowns, 71,838 yards. Yeah, Falcons definitely made a mistake sending Brett Favre packing to the Packers. Number 4. The Colts' nightmare on Elway Street sends John Elway to Denver in exchange for Chris Hinton, Mark Herman, and a first-round pick. The legendary 1983 NFL Draft featured Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, and of course, John Elway, who was selected first overall by the then Baltimore, now Indianapolis Colts. Elway was unhappy because the Colts were a mess in both the front office and field. If the Colts selected him and didn't trade him, he threatened to forego football and instead play baseball. While players and the media then questioned his mental toughness, it didn't stop teams from making a play for him. San Francisco was willing to trade a young Joe Montana. San Diego wanted to get him because of contract issues with their all-star Dan Fouts, and New England also showed heavy interest. Eventually, the Colts dealt him to Denver for offensive lineman Chris Hinton, backup quarterback Mark Herman, and a first-round pick in next year's 1984 draft. While the players the Colts received are forgotten history, John Elway is anything but. He finished with 5 Super Bowl appearances, 2 wins, a Super Bowl MVP, 9 Pro Bowls. He's a Hall of Famer. He has 300 touchdown passes, 51,475 yards, and 4,123 completions. Number 3. New England makes Randy Moss new when the Raiders trade Randy Moss to New England for a 4th-round pick. This is insane. The Patriots made out like bandits in this one. Randy Moss was first drafted at the end of the first round in the 1998 draft by the Minnesota Vikings. In his first 5 seasons with the Vikes, he had tremendous numbers, having over 1,000 yards in each of those seasons. In his 6th season, he was hurt, but was still able to put up respectable numbers. After that season, he was traded to the miserable Raiders, and there was an immediate drop-off. This was attributed to his lack of enthusiasm, effort, and age. Unhappy with him, the Raiders traded him after having 2 average years. All the Patriots had to do was give them a 4th-round pick, and they had what some consider to be the 2nd best receiver ever. Him and Tom Brady immediately got to work in his first season in New England, which was in 2007. With his help, the Patriots had the greatest regular season ever, going 16-0. That year, Moss was Brady's #1 receiver and broke Jerry Rice's single-season touchdown record, having 23 as opposed to Rice's 22. Moss contributed for almost half of Brady's record-breaking 50 touchdown pass season. At the time, the most TD passes in a season. Going to New England rejuvenated Moss's career and made him an all-time great again, plus a deal New England got him for. So why is this not number 1? Well, because Moss never won a championship and only stayed there for 4 seasons. Number 2. A 49ers strike gold when the Buccaneers trade Steve Young to San Francisco for 2nd and 4th-round picks. Instead of signing with an NFL team after college, Steve Young went to the rival USFL League and was selected first overall by the Los Angeles Express in 1984. He went in favor of the promise of more money. Fortunately for Young, the league folded in 1985. In the NFL Supplemental Draft, which consisted of USFL and CFL players, Young was selected first overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In 2 seasons with the Bucs, Young started 19 games and went 3-16, threw 11 touchdowns, 22 interceptions, and completed less than 55% of his passes. Despite all of this, the mad genius and 3-time Super Bowl winning coach Bill Walsh was greatly interested in Young's athletic ability and dealt Tampa Bay a 2nd and 4th-round pick in exchange for him. This was surprising because at this point he was considered a bust by all accounts. For 3 years he served as a backup to legend Joe Montana, but did see playing time as a relief player at the end of games or as a starter if Montana was hurt. At one point, for a brief time, he did split game time with Montana. In the 1990 playoffs, Montana was hurt and missed all of the 1991 season. Young finally got his chance to start and never looked back. After the 1991 season, the Niners put their faith in Young and traded Montana away to the Chiefs. He replaced the legend and became a legend himself despite only having 8 years as a starter. He won a Super Bowl MVP. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler. He's in the Hall of Fame. He had 2,667 completions, 33,124 yards, and 232 touchdowns. He was also one of the first quarterbacks in league history to be a real dual threat. Well, at first a head-scratching trade ended up proving everyone wrong. Number 1. Cowboys trade Herschel Walker to the Vikings in the Great Train Robbery in exchange for 5 players and 8 picks. Herschel Walker was a solid elite NFL player. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler, had 13,084 all-purpose yards, and 42 total touchdowns. He was their offense, which made this trade questionable when it happened. There's so many players and picks involved, it would be confusing. And if I explained it all in one video, we'd be here all day. In layman's terms, new coach Jamie Johnson knew the Cowboys weren't very good and decided to stockpile picks and build in the draft. He would only keep 1 player involved in the trade. Although this was very unorthodox, it did eventually work. This trade led directly to them getting Emmitt Smith, one of the greatest running backs ever, and Darren Woodson, a solid elite safety. These 2 players, along with a few more they would soon get in the next few years, contributed heavily to their 3 titles in the 90s. Also, as a side note, Herschel would eventually return to the Cowboys and play a minor role. And that's my list. I can't wait to see all 25 of you dislike and leave mean comments. I don't care. I care immensely.